It came up with my name. Okay, good. Um, Happy New Year. It's 2025. Mark Wagner, Dental Bytes. It's been a while. It's been wildly crazy, beyond crazy. So I have a goal this year to be more consistent with the show. I apologize for all those viewers that are looking for the next episode. Um, I've got the best guy to talk about, getting a program set up, getting things started in the new year, and getting them on track. A little bit of an exercise guru. I'm going to pick his brain on that because we all would love to be in better shape, I guess. I'll shut up. I'll bring in my lovely guest here, Matt. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Happy 2025 to you as well.
It's
Like you
wild.
said,
It's
the
wild.
chaos that has been the last stretch and the consistency factor, right? As soon as you said that, it brought me back to my podcast days from several years ago where every week you crank these out and then one week you don't, and then it's 2 weeks, and then you're like, are people going to leave? Are people not interested? Am I bringing
Yeah.
value? And it just instantly start like to sweat again, thinking back
Oh,
to
I
those.
know. And then as we were trying to get started here, just the technical side of things, like a piece of software, just how it goes, just disappears off the computer, and you can't hear anything. It's one of these annoying things, and yeah, life is crazy. Life is, I think, it's gonna start to get even more wild out there with everything going on. Like, there seems to be sort of a tension in the air. I can kind of feel it from everybody. How are you feeling on the other side of the world, Matt? Like,
This
what's
side of the world. That's right. So we for 4 hours in the future here. It's
yeah, you
like you
are.
said. It's this overall view and tension of what's going on, both from just the start of a new year of political climates, the wildfires, like just everything that goes on right now in the news cycle, and then you bring it back to your personal life, and it really makes you reevaluate what is really important in this moment. I had some travel scares back in November as well, leading into 2024 with some health issues. And it really kicked me into a sense of high gear for 2025 from not necessarily a resolution point of view, but just to recenter, refocus, to say, okay, this is an opportunity with the change of the calendar, whether you believe in those or not, use it as an excuse.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter if it's January 1st or March 12th, is that if you can have the psychological, like, no, this is a date, like we're going to do something different here, that triggers people to at least start or think, and versus just all of a sudden saying, oh no, I'm going to wait till this, I'm going to wait till this specific milestone or date. Is that just pick a date, and this happens to be a time of year for most people that it is important. So I'm always excited to hear from different points of view of what's important from health point of view, family, personal, professional. What people are thinking going into this. So I'm excited to hear your view on things, because we've always been able to just connect and click on what we're thinking, and he just
yeah,
offers this
yeah.
diverse view on different aspects of the country, different aspects of our lives. So
Mhm.
looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, yeah. I've been thinking a lot about this conversation and coming into this and kind of diving into, you know, whether or not, like you just nailed it, like whether or not it's something that you set aside some time and really plan to, like your New Year's resolutions, right? Like if that's your thing, that's great. uh, for me personally, it's all about consistency, right? And I just find being realistic with your goals, like I think a lot of people have these grandioso ideas, and maybe they set themselves up for a little bit of disappointment, taking on, these unrealistic output, the energy output, right? And you got all these great ideas, but what what can you maintain over time? I think is sort of what everybody kind of needs to dig down and figure out. For me, New Year's is more or less like it's a time of reflection more than a time of like replanning, and it's a forceful time of, it's one of those like default times where you kind of look back over the year and think about what worked, how tired I feel, And think about all the obvious things like, man, getting more sleep would be great. And like the simple things, right? Try and get things back on track to where you think you could obtain things and goals and that. But yeah, I think like even just being consistent in everything in life and finding the balance is tough because like you get like I watched you did your little travel thing and then you got pretty sick and that threw you like off like that kind of thing. You got to just sort of be ready to fight that kind of stuff, right? Like life kind of doesn't stop.
Yeah, no, and that's the one thing with me. Like I said, the timing. So to summarize it, I was on a trip on the way home. Got fairly sick in flight. Spent some time in a Dubai airport hospital, um, and just everything ended up being okay. But it made me reflect for the first time in a long time. And those who have sort of followed my journey outside of the dental world, when I'm in my health and fitness space, is that the consistency, the health, but just that lifestyle. It was the first time I can remember in 5, 10 years of being scared for my health to a factor that I wasn't in control of it. Sure,
Yeah.
there's moments with injuries where you have a time frame, you're going to heal, or you can make adjustments, or you just know when you fall in those ruts. I'll have 2 or 3 week stretches where it's like, okay, I'm just going through the motions, but there's still motion, so it's okay. This was a different one where 30,000 feet in the air, having
Oh,
some
man.
issues, not being able to, again, understand what's going on, also being with it enough to say, okay, like there's not much people can do here. Um, so it really scared me to the point where like it just the timing of it, end of November leading into this year, it's like, okay, let's not take for granted the work that I put in personally over the last 3 or 4 years. That's important to me with my physical and mental health routines.
Mm-hmm.
And I had somebody tell me when I got back saying like, oh, and it was kind of just a text in jest, but it was, oh, thank God you're healthy, or maybe you wouldn't have made it. And he said it with a bit of a laugh at the end, but I read that differently, thinking like, okay, if I hadn't put in work over the last several years, and the work to me may be different from what the work is to you or someone else, but what's important to me is like, okay, if that moment came, I can say, oh, you know what, I've done a lot of stuff that I hope to I have done to take care of myself, that maybe that did play a role in what had happened in sort of quick recovery. So that led me like into this year, just with the especially the health side of things. Is I like to the mental health obviously is big, but that was the first time from a physical health point of view to say, okay, let's make sure we pay attention to stuff this year, to
Matt,
triggers,
like
to something.
let's dive a little bit into your routine. Like like you're like a really fit dude. Like I don't know, like just to call out to the audience, like give us your Instagram handle and like you work out hard. Like you have a great routine in place. Just kind of enlighten the folks on like what that is and go into like you used to run a health related podcast, right? Like it's your thing.
I did, yeah. So the fitness handle is MRB Fitness 47. And yeah, it started 8, 9 years ago. Just initially wanting to transition from being a junior hockey athlete into, okay, after people stop playing sports at a level of 2021, from the point where that's no longer your career path, I would say 90% of them then have that year where they realize that consistency that was forced upon them with structure
Yeah.
of that activity is that you took that for granted, that is something that was put for you, and then you just showed up because it was part of your job. And then I hit a stage where it's like, okay, I didn't feel good. I didn't like the look in the mirror. And back then, 10 years ago, it was very much aesthetics. It was like I'm still young, thinking, okay, no, and my goal was, let's get back to where I was. And I still have that drive 20 years on to, I still think I'm in training camp mode, that I'm still preparing for something every year. And I'm thankful every day I wake up that I still have that drive. So I got into the fitness space for myself, started getting into helping some people locally, family members, some close friends, branched out a little bit with a connection I had made in the US. And we started a podcast called the Fit Men Movement. And we had a couple hundred episodes where we would tackle different topics every day, from mental health, physical health, specific spot training stuff, different things on routine, habits, resolutions, those type of things. And to me, it was from going from being a guest on that show 6 months before I became a co-host, is that I was able then to find that voice where I didn't have to worry about the stereotypes or anything that anyone else around me here thought. Is like I was just this brand new person. I could speak authentically who I was. And I had these two mindsets internally, that I had fitness Matt, and then I just had like everyday Matt, who was more timid, a little bit more internal. And this allowed that voice of that opportunity for me to just start talking. And then it just sort of branched out from there. Luckily, because I grew a bit of a following, I grew close with a lot of people, and seeing success of people at different levels, it allowed me to consistently stay dialed in, because people were relying on me to do this. And then all of a sudden that turns into 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and now 10 years kind of into this journey. My life centers around my health and my fitness, and wrapping up New Year's stats. And I'm big on stats. Was that every work day last year, except for 7, I had a 6 a.m. workout in my house, in the little gym that I've prepared. And it's not optional, and it's not something I love to do every day. It's something I will do it because it is part of me. And if I don't do that, man, my week, my day, it just spirals, and people notice that. Like,
Matt, how do you? I'm cutting you off, so just so you know. How do you get, like, how do you keep that up? Like, there's somebody out there, and this is the time of year that everybody's like, I would love to get back to it. No, drawing up on your history and talking to folks, like, how would you encourage people? What would you recommend people do to like get into a healthy routine? That, like, the everybody knows how to work out, but it's the consistency of it. Like, what recommendations would you give folks?
There's two things that I've come across that I find are the most successful for people, especially who are just getting started. The first one is setting a realistic goal that is 30% of what you think you want to do. So I have a lot of people that I would work with. They say, okay, I want to get into 5 days a week, 45 minutes a day. And it's like, these people have gone from nothing to trying to do this. They get 9 days in, and then they miss 2 or 3 days, and it completely derails them psychologically. If your goal is 5 days a week or 4 days a week at 30 minutes, start at 2 days a week at 20 minutes. Prove to yourself that you can stick to something. Do that consistently for a month, even a little bit longer. And then anything you do above that, it's just so satisfactory to say, okay, you know what? I hit this goal that I set. It was small, but it was a starting point. Okay. And then maybe you start to build on it a little bit more. So the first thing is just tackle something start to finish that you can actually just check it off. And it doesn't need to be anything intense, extreme.
Like, go for a walk.
Go for a walk. Go do 10 air squats. Like, just do something where you can track it. And it doesn't have to be like a detailed track. You don't need to have any specifics. Just like, okay, let's actually just do something today, and start a timer for 10 minutes and just move. So that's the first thing, is set a realistic goal and overperform that goal. Like, prove to yourself, you know what, like, I can do this. And the second one is this communication factor, is tell your spouse, tell your kids, tell a friend, tell a family member, tell somebody else you want to do this. And if that's one text message, if that's one morning where you don't want to, and the other person just gives you a bit of encouragement, have that sense of accountability for somebody else, and explain to them why you want to do this. Don't just say, I just want to get healthier. Just say, you know what, I really want to focus on this because I would like to be able to walk for 20 minutes without getting winded. I'd like to be able to run 5K within 6 months. Those people will appreciate that. They're not going to judge you. What you may want to do is different from what I may want to do from a tangible goal. But I find more satisfaction from dealing with those people who have no experience or history of trying to train for some specific task, like a sporting event or a race or something like that, who are able to then just, you know what, I need to find something. And those are the people that just, they creep up, and then they don't have the expectation of what that looks like, because they've never necessarily been to a point where they think they're going to get to, and then they'll realize it one day. And
Yeah.
that's exciting to see for somebody that's close to you, especially if that's a family member, a spouse, a child, even just to show them by that example is that accountability factor is huge.
Yeah, like that's it's tough though. Like, it's the 90-day thing, right? Like you just gotta those days that you don't want to do it are the ones that you should be doing it the most, right? Like you should just find that internal fight. Like I grew up as a competitive swimmer, so my schedule looked like swimming Monday morning, Monday night, Tuesday morning, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, Thursday night, Friday
Yeah.
morning, Friday night, Saturday morning, right? Like, it's I kind of have it built into me from that. Like I can turn things on like that. Like I attribute my discipline in life to, growing up as a competitive swimmer, and I got to a pretty high level. But the folks that don't have that and starting from scratch, that's really tough. Like, and I think you nailed it. It's like be realistic with yourself. I think a lot of people getting into it, they just feel stuck, like they'd never be able to get into that routine. And then that's a dark place to be, like to break that cycle. You just like you have to know that you're not going out to run a marathon, like go for a walk, or I would say even ticking off the boxes would be like playing with your kids, doing something physical too, like going out and watching them ride up and down the street with on the bike, or take them to the park, or walk your dog. All these things count. But
And
then
it's
it comes to those habits, the food habits, right? Like the other, it's not so much just about the working out part. It's like the whole thing. It's not beating yourself up. It's even that kind of thing. How do you? What's your philosophy in competing against sort of that the mental game behind it all? Like the fight to wake up. Like is it like what are your?
and that is the number one factor. And I've had some really bad mental health like scares over the year where like this is part of what drove me into some of this as well, was that just what I love about my mornings specifically, and this can be adaptable to your routine. For me, mornings are, and for most people, um, the morning is going to be the least chance you're going to be interrupted by something in life. Yes, you may have routines later in the morning with children, with your work, with commuting, but you're still going to have that 20 minutes before that 30 minutes before that.
Yeah.
So for me, knowing mentally knowing that I control that every single day, 99 out of 100 times, is that it's my decision to wake up. It's my decision to decide what effort I put in today. And it's my decision to just continue to do that. There's not an email, there's not a phone call. Sure, there's going to be life scenarios that pop up, but most of the time, and a lot of people are very routine oriented in their lives and they have their structures that find that time. And that comes down to communication as well. If you tell your spouse, a kid, somebody, say, you know what, I'm getting up 30 minutes earlier this week, 3 days this week. Let them know why you're doing it, why it's important, and they will understand. They may not want to get up with you then, but maybe in 10 days they do, maybe in 2 months they do, but they'll
Yeah.
see that. But for you and for me, that I cannot control what emails I'm going to have after this call. I'm not going to be able to control maybe what happens at 6 o'clock tonight. But for me, that 6 a.m. time frame, am I a morning person? Yes, I've become a morning person because of it. That's me. I decide that. I have total control on that. So that's that one thing that's calming to me, is that when I walk into my space, it's like I know, like this is my realm right now, that something drastic will have to happen for me not to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone in there some mornings and I have the goal of an intense workout or something specific, and I'll end up doing like 12 minutes of it and then maybe just lay down on the yoga mat and just chill in the dark. But it's like,
Love
okay,
that.
I've
That's cool.
still I've still adapted, and that's where I've grown over the years, was that I'm no longer tied to intensity all the time, maximum calorie burn. It's like, what is good for my body? And sometimes what's good for my body is what's good for my brain, to say, like, let's just chill. Like, let's
Well,
just
and
sit
and
here.
like it kind of comes back to like the going to the gym is like it's kind of like watching grass grow, right? Like it's not an over. It's about the consistency for something like this, right? Like it's your body's not gonna. You're at a main point of you're just maintaining. Like I would imagine, right? Um, like you have a body of understanding. Like you understand your body more probably than a lot of folks, and what your needs are. And like I'm thinking of these guys that are just starting out, like where would you even begin if you didn't have this body of knowledge? Like a lot of people, like, do I go to the gym? Like, what do I do? Like, what would you recommend, like, if people don't have sort of that background?
I think if you're starting from scratch, I almost think the most intimidating and is that January gym membership.
Oh
Is
my,
like
yeah.
just going like that is to
Yeah.
me, and this is, and I'm lucky. I have a space in my home, but I still to this day would be very self conscious going to a gym. When I go traveling for work and I go to a hotel gym, I probably could teach classes to most people in these gyms, but
Hmm.
I will be hesitant and I will wait till someone leaves. I will just do stuff because I don't want to be judged. I don't know if they're like, I just constantly have that fear still to this day. So for these people getting started, I always recommend doing stuff from your home, from your yard, going for a walk, like basic stuff where you can build a bit of routine, a bit of confidence. You can do 1,001 things with body weight, with very minimal purchasing, such as say a resistance band or an exercise ball or
Hmm.
something. So, like part of my feed is that I used to post a lot of these like really affordable tools that you can use 15 different ways at home, and it's I will still use those sometimes. Is that I built up some other stuff, but I really encourage people to don't go because you will freeze up most of these people. They'll get there. There'll be so much to do. You'll see
Hmm.
these people who are mid whatever they're training for. So I recommend. I mean, the internet is full of. There's 1,000 of me. So it's find someone that you connect with. And for me, it was important is that there's a lot of social media female health and fitness people. There wasn't a whole lot of males trying to help males with mental health, those type of things. So that was the sort of the birth of the Fit Men Movement podcast. That's why it was the Fit Men Movement podcast,
Yeah.
not to separate the groups, but it was like there's guys out there who are intimidated. So let's show you. You know what? You may not be able to do 10 push-ups right now. Well, here's a routine to be able to do 10 push-ups within 14 days. So
Yeah.
those type of things is find someone online, do some Google research, reach out to people again that you just feel are authentic, that are knowledgeable. We all know somebody who has some type of connection with health or something in some way. Like just have these conversations. Don't be scared to ask these questions,
Yeah.
especially the basics like how do I do this? This is me right now in the tech world. Like it's getting back to the work side of things. When I first got into what I'm doing now, I was terrified. I had no idea about any of the stuff when it came to technology, but I was focused on dental, and it ended up being 80% tech and then my dental rolling into it. I know how these people feel with health and fitness because it was the opposite for them. It's like, we know nothing about this. What do we do? I see this pill, I see this powder, I see this. Should I be doing these things? So it's overwhelming, but I mean, it's that authenticity that draws me to people that don't appear to have an agenda just to build something financially. And there's people who do that who are successful and
Oh,
very
for sure.
they're good at
Yeah.
what they do. But there's a lot of people who are just doing it. My page right now is simply just as like a it's to keep me accountable. Is that most of the
Yeah.
time I'll be
Yeah. For
writing a
sure.
post and I was like, this is directed at me.
Yeah.
Like I should be tagging myself in some of these things.
Yes. Awesome. And you talked about technology. Even like the intro free version of ChatGPT. If you write a prompt and say, okay, so these are the pieces of equipment or things that I have available at home. These are the activities, physical activities that I really enjoy doing, and then write down this is the level that I'm at, and then ask it to sit like make me a weekly routine based on these parameters. I've done that. Like I've just built my own sort of workout program with things that I have around the house, and it's awesome. And I've actually used it to go and make me a meal program and things like that. So, and this tool is free. Like that, the free version of ChatGPT. I have the paid version, but just a recommendation out there. Like the technology at our, you talked about the technology that we have at our fingertips. That would be a tip. Like if you don't have anybody to draw and ask, like there's Google and YouTube channels with people doing different things. Um, I would recommend people like, what is it that you enjoy doing? And like, there might be a lot of people that don't enjoy physical activity very much at all, but there might be something like, combining it with photography, like go do a hike and bring your camera and you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's, I just learned something there as well, is that I am
Yeah,
just getting into the whole chat GPT game. My
you
team,
should
it drives
check it
them
out.
crazy.
Yeah, I'd be
Drives my
really
team crazy
curious to
that
see
yeah,
what it spits out for you because like you're, if you want to like take it to the next level, like gradually, it's a cool tool. Like it's really really cool. And the more information you give it, the more you prompt it, the more it spits back out at you, and it might spit a program back out at you, and you're like, yeah, I don't like these certain aspects, and then it'll recreate it for you. So
yeah,
I've done that myself. Yeah.
yeah, I'm
No,
diving into that. So that's a great tip right
yeah.
there. So
And
it's
I actually like I was like, oh, that's great. Now how the hell do I start?
yeah.
And it actually sent back a message like, well, Mark, if I can jump out of your phone and encourage you to keep, to start, I would.
Yeah, message
Like,
Matt is what it's telling you.
yeah, message your buddy Matt.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and not everybody has a Matt, right? So that's tough. That's the tough part.
the one thing as well is that it's, I find sometimes is that people, they will, they'll set a goal, but they won't really have a plan. And this is where they struggle, I think, is that a lot of people, and one of my favorite things to do is work on my pull-up bar. Because one day I could not do a pull-up, and then 6 months later I could do a pull-up. As now I if I could give anybody any tool, it would be use your body weight to do things and use the pull-up bar. But it's understanding is like, why, what do you need to do to get to that stage? And it's, that's where people get overwhelmed, is that you can't just show up and try and do a pull-up. Like it's building that foundation.
Yeah.
And this is where those educational things, and this is where a tool like that will be, what are some body weight exercises? What are some exercises I can do to build back muscle in regards to that? So that's where those tools become healthy or helpful for those people who are intimidated to go and ask, to
Yeah.
go and try something. So it's, and what I really encourage people, and this is how I get better at things I want to do. If I see a fitness challenge on social media, I think they're all tagged for me and I need to try and do this. And I'll do 9 out of 10 of them. And the first time is like, I have no idea what we're doing. For people who do have a routine, or even people who just want to learn something, don't make that part of like your main, say 20 minutes. If your main 20 minutes is like, just get moving, find 5 minutes outside of that scheduled time anywhere else in your week to try that. Set zero expectations for the outcome of you trying something new. And this is if I'll see a balance challenge. I love yoga balance poses. If I see that, I'm not going to say, okay, from my 6 to 6:45 morning routine, maybe at the end, if I have some time, I'll do that. But maybe it's a Saturday at 2 o'clock. We just finished watching a show and I'll just go pop in and say, I'm going to try this, because there's no expectations of I need to get my work done in this time. I'm just going to try something fun and new. And then you realize you can't do it. And then over time you try it again, and you'll process more and you'll understand to say like, what couldn't I do? And then you get interested to say like,
Yeah.
well, I'm always falling here. So it's just little things like that, is that finding something you want to do. That's the fun part as well. If you
Yeah.
don't like lifting weights, if you don't like cardio, like find alternatives to do something. Like you said, stuff with your kids, or not. Like, I love the idea about the photography thing. It's like, maybe that's, I want to get X amount of pictures and I want to go on this trail and I want to do this, and the
Bike to
duration will be
somewhere
this
in there.
long.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like tie it to something that you do enjoy doing and turn it into some sort of physical activity. Um, I've done that a few times actually. Um, Food. Let's quickly touch on that because like this is a big part of it, and not only yes the calorie thing, but giving your body the right things that it needs to operate. And for me the motivator in all of this is I think it's something you lose like 1 to 3% of your muscle mass every decade if you're not using it. And I'm looking at my dad now in an old folks home, fell and broke his hip. He's Alzheimer's, right? Um, but I wonder, what if my dad, exercised more? Would he be in that spot? And I saw this video. It's obviously, you're looking at things, and Google knows exactly what you're looking at, and they're shooting content that's right. We're talking about it now, so we're going to see a bunch of fitness things coming up. But it was the picture. It was a split screen of an elderly man, one in like in a wheelchair, getting like fed a juice container with a straw, and the other one was this guy playing with his grandkids and stuff, like, and it said like, who would you choose to be? And that's a lot of people kind of disregard like what it means over time, like the habits that you have. That's what it turns into in the end. Like, and the message was it, how do you want to spend the last 10 years of your life? And that was like, oh man, I better get off my ass and start exercising some more. Not that I've been terrible, but for me too, exercise, if I'm exercising, I'm in a better mental state. You just like, your body's releasing all the good stuff, and you're being sort of rewarded that way. And it's just like a lifestyle thing. It's tough. Like, people are sort of buried by like where to start, and there's so much information out there now, and a lot of people that are willing to help and not get paid for it. But you have to dig down and make it important to yourself, right?
The food side of thing, that's, and for those who follow my feed, is that every third post is something about some nachos or pizza or beer or something. Like, we love our food here, but it's, what's the foundation for me is outside of what I'm going to enjoy. And tonight I'll have something indulgent as a
It's
Friday
Friday.
night, but
You should, right?
it's setting that foundation. So not only in my mornings is do I have my routine, is that every single morning for breakfast I'm having a shake that has some protein, some probiotics, some yogurt, some fruits. Is that is my foundation, that I call it my insurance policy for my health, that even if I know I'm going to go out and just have an absolute binge day, I will put the correct fuel in my body at some point during that day. Even if that means I'm going to go put another 300 calories, 350 in that smoothie that I'm making, at least I know my body's getting the key pieces that it needs outside of the chaos that it may get later on.
Yeah.
Is that I'm not focused on the calorie count right now. And some people it is. If your goal is to steadily lose some weight, like, of course you need to pay attention to those things. But I will, again, make sure I'm getting what it needs. And during the week, I mean, most of the time, very structured. I am very routine, as you guys can tell, but it's making sure you are still providing those nutrients somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough with rising food costs, with the access to produce, or high quality produce specifically. I mean, we just, in our trip, we were in Southeast Asia, and seeing the access to stuff that is that fresh, that vibrant, that taste, and the cost that they have, and then to come home that first week back, it's depressing to go to see a dragon. I bought a dragon fruit yesterday in my local grocery store because I fell in love with them in Vietnam.
They're good.
In
Yeah.
Vietnam, they were like 15 cents. Well, it was $6 here. And I bought it for the nostalgia. And you know what? I'm going to have
Yeah.
that dragon fruit. But that
That
dragon
treat.
fruit
Yeah.
came from the same shop, probably, that, or the same farm that I had it fresh. So it's challenging there. So supplementation, and this is where I always encourage you to speak with your doctor, is like, what is
Yeah.
too much? What's not enough? The other key thing with supplements, which, because there's a million out there, I have never paid full price for a supplement in my life.
A lot of it is
Everything,
marketing. A lot of it is
absolutely.
marketing. And you
The
read
marketing,
the ingredients deck, and they're all the same. One has just a fluorescent, shiny looking label, and it's $12 more, right?
yeah, and it's I've been sucked into that too. Like, it's hard. I mean, that's why marketing works, is to be able to say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I like that one." It's
Yeah.
so yeah, doing your research on supplements, again. But I do encourage you, because there's so many out there, and it's like, just because it says vitamins or just because it says this, and that may be a really good tool for somebody, it may not be for you, for your body. I've had several times over the years, like, full panel blood tests from my doctor, just as like baseline. Let's see,
You
where
know,
am I at?
I was going to touch on that too. I think it's crucially important to have a regular routine checkup. It's the same thing with dentistry, right? Where we live, every 6 months, get your teeth cleaned. Like if like if you've got a package, like a benefit package. I went and just got my eyes tested. There's nothing wrong with my eyes, but they recommended a few things, like, and kind of made me a little depressed because they said, "Hey, Mark, your 40-year-old eyes are going to get worse and worse, so you shouldn't be, I shouldn't be looking at screens all day." But I got a prescription for a blue light glasses, which I had no idea about. There you go. You got some too. I
I
love
got them.
finding
Yeah,
out.
they make me look smart, but they actually do the trick too.
Yeah, they do.
No
And
prescription. Mine is that blue light. It's
there you go. Yeah. So just like I would, if anything, before you go and work out, especially if you haven't, go get your blood work done, see where your blood pressure is sitting at, like your levels of cholesterol and all these types of things. Like that's a baseline, right? So and I talked to my family physician about this. It's like it's crucially important to see a regular checkup to see if there's anything that kind of looks off. We have this body of how your body's been performing so that we can sort of navigate faster through things. And you know I hate to say it, but like it was over Christmas time, and there was my brother-in-law threw down like a date, and I went a calculation, and I was like, that's not 50. No, right? And it's like, oh shit, it is. That's right. I'm gonna be turning 50. Not soon, right? I'm like early 40s, but it's time flies, and the habits that we put in place, like it's not so much about like the end of the week and everything. It's about the end of the month or the end of 6 months to really take a look back and review how things are going, like in terms of your body, right?
And it all goes back to consistency. So again, you could and we encourage you, go schedule something with your physician. But those results today, there will be maybe an abnormality that is just fluke from something that you had to eat 3 days before, five. Like, so this is why do it again, or find out when is the better time for me to do this. What are those parameters? And I had some done 6, 7 months ago, and there was some things that were okay, but just completely off the radar, saying like, this is odd. So
Mm-hmm.
not to panic right away at that. It's like, okay, let's revisit this in 6 months and let's see. So I have another follow-up to just specifically check a few things to say, okay, is it still there? If so, well, maybe there is a larger issue,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe it was just an abnormality at the time based on the scenario, the situation that you put yourself in. So it's all comes down to this consistency, this communication, this being okay with not being 100% all of the time.
Yeah.
Is that you have to start low. It's the two people that I've dealt with, and it's the people that have hit a peak, fallen off for whatever reason. We've all done it. Those people know what that peak is like. So I encourage them to say, you remember that in the digital age nowadays, I can say, you remember 2022 when we did that challenge in May, or we did that 5K obstacle course race? Do you remember that feeling? So you've been there before. So those people, it's really digging down to say, okay, I know what it takes to get there. It's those people who have just never put themselves first from a health point of view, that
Yeah. Yeah.
they don't know what that peak is. And maybe they've hit it and they've not known, but and my wife deals with chronic pain, and me with some health scares over the last little while as well. Is you forget how good you feel sometimes
Mm-hmm.
until you feel crappy. And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is not normal. So
Yeah.
do not take for granted if you're feeling good, if you actually like wake up and your neck is fine, your back, and like these type of things. It's like, okay, there's soreness, and then there's issues to say, are these getting better? Are they getting worse? Remember what it feels like when you're doing things consistently, you're doing things that are positive for your body and your mind, and then trying to enjoy those moments. Because as you say, as we get older, and you brought up that sort of muscle mass thing, and I posted something the other day, it's like some of the graphs is that I'm at that point now, or I'm almost at the peak where it's going to start to go down. It's
Sorry,
like, no,
man.
no, 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 no. It's like, this
Yeah.
is why I have this constant battle with gravity
These
every day.
meat suits don't last forever, man. Like, and I think it's important. Like, you're worth it. Like, and look at yourself in the mirror and just tell yourself that like you're worth it, even if it's like you're not sleeping well. Why not go or if you're feeling off or something like that, right? Like, nine times out of 10, it's nothing. But go, like, man, here in Canada, we have the luxury. Like, go and get yourself checked out. Like, you know, heaven forbid it's something awful, but your own peace of mind too, right? Like, we're all a little
Yeah.
bit of hypochondriacs out there, right?
Yeah, and to wrap all that, like I think the consistency, like my mantra has always been, if you train the body, the mind will come. I do think it's important because you can control what your body does most of the time. That is easier to conquer than it is sometimes the demons inside your head. Is
Sure.
that you could feel great one day and then at 2 o'clock you get an email or something triggers you, and then you can't always control that. I was able to first train my body to say it can transform. And then I started to believe, to say, geez, if I can do this, look, I can start. My mind is changing. Is that I approached trauma, I approached difficult situations different, to say, instead of panicking and freaking out, which I'll still do. I've had a rough week, but now it's like, this is the first time this has happened work wise. Absorb it. What happened? How do we do it better? It's not going to end the world. It is tech
Yeah.
industry. It's the dental industry. Like, bring yourself back to say, okay, this will again pass. So I always believe, and that's why I'm so consistent with the physical side of things, is that
Mm-hmm.
that will most of the time be in your control. When the psychological stuff, that's tough because you don't always have control of that. But if you can say, I've done something that I put my mind to, I stuck to it, dude, that's going to go a long way in both your work, your physical health, your mental health, relationships, all of those things.
Yeah, it's those little wins over time. I think. Yeah, you nailed it. Um, Matt, this has been great. Any final thoughts? Anything stewing around it? Was there anything that we didn't touch on that you were sort of thinking about? You wanted to
I
bring
just
up?
think it's exploring all of these tools, personal development in regards to literature. I mean, that's also something that I'm big on. Is that for those who are readers, is that I rotate through. I'm big on biographies when it comes to just the athletes. Is that I will rotate between a biography and then some type of personal development book, whether that's learning more about the body, the mind, something that's going to help me with habits. So I like to rotate through. There's an author, his name's Matthew Side. He's a British author, and he has 3 books that I've read, and those always stick with me as saying, like, those are 3 fundamental pieces for me that I just connected with. So finding someone, again, that whether it's some influencer that you've listened to, for some of these motivational people, if something has ever caught your ear from something they've said or you've seen, and they have something written down, again, it makes you slow down to physically read. It's outside of the realm of the digital world. Is that take the time, try and dive into some of these books. So again, if you ever have questions on that, ChatGPT is going to help you with that as well. But just
Yeah.
reach out to people. And again, if you can take 2 or 3 things away from an entire book, that's 2 or 3 more than you had before. So constantly looking at different ways. Again, my view on life is much different than it was 5 years ago because I've been able to adapt and been in this sort of environment where I've needed to adapt in regards to physical health, work, all of this stuff. So you're never alone, everybody. I mean, just from this podcast alone, if you're listening to this and you need to talk to anybody, reach out to Mark and I, send a
Yep.
message. Like, it
Absolutely,
is,
dude.
it is that easy. Is that we are always both, I mean, we're inquisitive people that we want to both understand different sides of things, and that's how we learn as well, sort of that those different viewpoints, and that's how we learn in the industry, but also for our health. I mean, Mark's always available. I know that if I ever needed to, I could reach out to him, and the same goes for those listeners. For me, feel free.
Absolutely, brother. Cool. This has been great. Let's not wait so long before we do this again, and we should like
Yeah,
have a
that
regular.
consistency, I think we need to
Yeah. Why don't we
yeah.
do this in six? We should do a show just about this outside of dentistry every 6 months. We should do this.
You can count me in for that.
Okay, let's book it.
That's focus.
All right, Matt. Have a great weekend, man.
Also appreciate you, my friend.
Appreciate you too.